So we move on to the showpiece of all showpieces, the richest race in Europe. It's the Qatar Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. One of the greatest races there is. I've been lucky enough to go and watch the race myself at Longchamp. It's a brilliant track, brilliant venue, and usually crowns a really good horse. Now, the last few years it has been a little bit up in the air with horses like Alpinista winning, but it is, it does consistently attract Europe's kind of elite horses. Earlier in the season, of course, Luc de Vega won the French Derby, and before that I got on him at 8-1 to win the Arc. I'm not too sure after last time being beaten by Socia. I know that was a prep race. I know he wouldn't have been completely tuned up for it, but I'm just not sure what he's beaten this year. I'm not confident enough to take like a favourites price on him again and put him up at kind of half that at 4-1 here. I think 8-1 is fair, and I'm happy to kind of let that play out, but he's certainly not going to be the tip there. Aventure is another one that I saw a lot earlier in the season win a very good race. She looked very impressive that day. She's had a bit of a mixed bag campaign ever since. But as I mentioned previously in this video, only narrowly beaten by Bluestocking in the Vermeil, which I thought was a good race and a good prep. Yeah, I'd probably prefer Bluestocking again just to confirm that form, so I'm not going to put Aventure up. Fillies and mares have a brilliant recent record in this race, Enable and Alpinista to name a few, just going back a few years. And speaking of Enable, Judmon have an amazing record in this race. And they've settled 6 winners, 5 different horses. Enable being a dual winner and nearly becoming the only horse to have won this brilliant race 3 times. And yeah, 4 of the winners. So Bluestocking would be bidding to make this a 7th win in the Arc for Judmon. As mentioned before, she did win the Vermeil, which is good form going into this. Horses aged 3 or 4 do dominate this race as expected, as they usually do in top class Group 1s. And it has to be mentioned going into this race that some of the best colts in Europe will not be turning up for this. So Economics is going to wait for Ascot for the Champions Stakes. City of Troy is heading over to America for the Breeders' Cup Classic on dirt. Calandagan is a gelding, so can't run in this race. So that's 3 already that kind of aren't going to turn up, that could possibly go off favourite for this race, which definitely makes it more wide open. And speaking of the Irish Champions Stakes, of course, aforementioned Economics won that. Won't be turning up here. Auguste Rodin probably wants good ground, so even if he did turn up here, wouldn't fancy him, especially not over this trip. Which kind of leaves Shin Emperor and Los Angeles. Aiden's got a really weird record with 3-year-olds in this race. He's only 2 winners as Sir Dylan Thomas and Found, which for some of the 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds Aiden's trained is kind of crazy. Yeah, he hasn't got a great record with 3-year-olds in this race at all, so I wouldn't be rushing to back Los Angeles, although I do think he's had a very good season. So the 3rd or the 4th that day was Shin Emperor, a Japanese horse. Now the interesting thing about Shin Emperor is that he's a full brother to the 2020 Arc winner Sotsas, which is quite interesting for Japanese who do quite like their homebred horses, their deep impacts, their heart's cries, etc, etc. So for them to have gone to a sale to buy a full brother to Sotsas, who would have been absolutely kind of it'd been really in demand by a lot of European trainers due to that due to that breeding background. I think this is Japan's real kind of stab at winning an ARCA. They've tried a lot recently with arguably better horses, but just maybe not horses that are as equipped to handle this ground and this race as this one is. So if they were ever gonna win an ARC, surely this would be one of their best chances. And that run in the Irish Champions Stakes is an absolutely savage run. You got some awesome horses there, and on his first start in Europe, to be that close to some of Europe's premier kind of 10 furlong horses, he was always getting close at the line. He was always closing. He looked like he was improving through the race. If he doesn't improve for that, and if he doesn't improve for kind of this trip, I'd be gobsmacked. So Shin Emperor is certainly going to be a tip here at 13-2. Yeah, let's see if the Japanese can finally kind of get this done. And Bluestocking, the aforementioned Vermeil winner, would be the other one. I think with all the defects, you know, from the brilliant colts, I don't think Bluestocking has loads to beat her. Her last two Group 1 wins were on a softer ground, so the rain forecast would not be an issue whatsoever for her. And I just think there's a reason why they've supplemented 120 grand to supplement her. Yeah, it's not loads, but with Judgmont's recent record in this race, they weren't going to have a runner in her. They wouldn't supplement her without a chance of winning it. She's got a chance. If she's got a chance to win it, it's going to have to be this year, because in coming years she'll either be too old or there's going to be better colts around, which, you know, it does make it hard. You need to be very, very special as a filly or a mare to be constantly beating colts, just like an Able was. So she's obviously not as good as an Able, but this race isn't as good as the races that an Able was ever encountering in the ARC either. So Bluestocking at a current kind of 14-1 seems quite big, and worth an each way stab, I'm sure. She always runs a heart out. She's been incredible this year for Rafe, so that'd definitely be another way I'd be looking at it. So the two bets for the ARC are going to be Shin Emperor to bring home a first ARC for Japan, and Bluestocking each way. I'll be half a point each way, to make it a grand total of 7 wins for Judgmont in this race, which would be some going. That's it for the Longchamp meeting. A quick recap of the 2 days. So we start off with Illinois in the 12:23 on Saturday, and then Kyprios and Double Major if you want to do a reverse forecast. If not, just pop Kyprios with Illinois in a treble, and that treble is rounded off by Zaragana on Sunday in the first. The one single on Saturday is Mosaic in the Royalieu, and then the other singles on the Saturday, one in the Lagada is Misunderstood, and then one in the Opera is Sparkling Plenty, and then 2 in the ARC is Bluestocking each way and Shin Emperor win.